Hello everyone, Game 3 of the 1935 World Chess Championship between Alexander Alekhine and Max Euwe. This time Alekhine has the white pieces and Euwe the black pieces. It's all tied up, one game apiece. And now we're in Game 3. This championship took place in the Netherlands, so we're on Euwe's home territory. Alekhine opened up with e4, e6, French defense, d4, and d5. Knight c3 from Alekhine. Bishop b4. So we see this Winauer variation. a3, and this is a rare, unusual continuation, but seen from time to time. Bishop takes c3, b takes c3, d takes e4, and now Alekhine plays queen g4. Now, for real enterprising players, f3 starts what is known or has been called the Winckelmann-Reimer gambit, and this is where black really does sacrifice a pawn, and I think it's kind of bad for black to actually take this pawn here on f3. It's a little too much, as the open lines and black and white's rapid development can turn into problems for black. So, for instance, if the knight f3, knight f6, bishop g5, castles, bishop d3, you can see white has a nice position and compensation for the pawns. Play can continue, for example, c5, castle, c takes d4, c takes d4, and you can see this easy going development for white here. Let's say, for example, natural move like knight c6, c3, 6, bishop h4, and then already things become a little problematic for black. I mean, he could play queen a5 here, attacking this pawn, but then, risk getting the king side ripped open. So normally black will opt for like a move like knight bd7, but here, I mean, the coast is not always clear here either, as white will sometimes plan on transferring his queen over to the king side via e1. So play is possible like that, and let's just make some random moves just to give you an illustration of how quick black can get in trouble. So say like b6, right, trying to solve the problem of this bishop not having any activity here, continuing development for black. Knight e5, so now we're already threatening moves like this, moves like knight d7, whereby this knight is pinned. Let's say knight takes d5, d takes e5. Alright, that could be a problem. But here, black actually gets rescued by this move, queen d4 check. So instead of that, you would play the queen here, and then maybe queen d5, and then white has a good game here. Or instead of queen d5, play for tactics. But again, with white being so far in development, it's only natural that the tactics that black tries would backfire against him. And here, this bishop takes h7. Let's take, of course, to make it fun. And then just simply queen e4. Alright, and of course, king g8, you lose the queen. So what else? f5. And here you could just take bishop takes, f takes, and then of course you're going to drop the rook. That was just a quick crash tutorial in the Winckelmann-Reimer gambit. Usually a good player here won't capture. He'll just play a move like knight f6. Okay, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, but if you're interested in that, do a little research. Use your engines or whatever. I played many speed games, blitz games with this line, and have good results. Many players will quickly snatch this pawn. I'm sorry, after f3 quickly snatch this pawn, and then after several moves find themselves in difficulty. All right, it's better to play a move like knight f6 here. Okay, I think the current um, status of this particular line is that that white just does not have quite enough compensation to warrant the sacrifice of another pawn. This is why Alekhine here plays this move queen g4. All right, it looks risky on the surface as the queen is out in the opening, right? There's no other pieces developed. The pawn structure is being compromised, and the queen is out on g4, attacking a flank pawn, right? So this is very provocative. Knight f6, queen takes g7, right, as planned. Rook g8, queen h6. So black gains some time attacking the queen. All right, and since black is in development, it's only natural to seek to open the game up with moves like c5 to be followed by moves like queen a5, knight e2, knight d7. Let me just go back for a second. Also, another option here is rook g6, of course, queen e3, and then c5. Okay, so there's no real big change there except that the rook has come to g6. But back to the game, c5, knight e2. All right, because this pawn, black was threatening to capture twice there. Knight bd7, and now knight g3. This does a few things. Notice that black's rook is on the open g file. So what knight g3 does is not only does it attack the a pawn, put some pressure here, but it also allows white to bring this bishop out without worrying about this pawn being captured, or having to compromise the structure on the king side by playing moves like g3 to worry about this rook. So now Euwe plays rook g6. Another idea is queen c7, and I believe just the position is just equal. I think that this opening is not bad for white. It just leads to an equal position. So queen f4, queen c6, queen d2, for example, h5, h4, queen c7. It could lead to a draw, right? Same concept with queen b6. But in the game, queen c7 was not played. Also note after queen c7, queen f5, queen c6. Queen d2 is not necessary. Bishop d2 can be played. And of course, a draw doesn't have to be accepted. You could play on. Of course, that would provoke the move g4. And this probably lead to a draw too, because can lead to a draw definitely after rook g4, queen h6, rook g4, and you go back and forth. I mean, you could try to do that, but again, h5, h4. So it depends on how hard the players are willing to fight. But queen c7 and queen b6 are definitely options here for black. In the game, he chose rook g6, attacking the queen straight away, and now queen e3, threatening, of course, to take here. And it's not really a matter of white winning material, because queen a5 is often on the table in these variations. Again, queen c7 is probably the best move here, and play can continue bishop d2. Right, these are typical maneuvers that you will see in the French win hour variation. b6. Again, we always have to address this in the French, this problem of this bishop. And this is just some sample play here. Okay, and I kind of like white a little bit in here. What the problem that I see for black is that as the position clarifies and opens up, the two bishops are sooner or later going to be felt. and that's a common theme in the French win hour when black gives up the bishop early. It's like, yeah, it's closed for a long time, the opening and middle game, but as the game progresses, white's bishops start to become a factor as the game goes on. Anyway, after rook g6, queen e3, knight d5 was played instead of queen c7. Another option, again, c takes d4. C takes d4 with the same idea. Queen c7, bishop d2, b6, again addressing this situation with the light square bishop. Alright, so again, sorry about that. We go back, queen e3, and knight d5 was chosen. And Euwe is playing dynamically here. We spoke about that in a previous video, that if you don't have the static advantages, you have to shoot for dynamic advantages, right? If you don't have the better pawn structure, for example, or you got a lot of holes in your position, right? You don't have static advantages such as the bishop pair. You have to play dynamically. You have a lead in development. You should try to exploit that. And these are the principles that Euwe is playing on right now with the black pieces, right? He's ahead in development. White has been running around with the queen, and so he's trying to exploit that in the position. So after knight d5, he plays queen takes e4. It gives up the pawn, but he gains the pawn with tempo against the queen. Knight takes c3, queen d3, and now knight d5. So Alekhine's doing a good job at counterattacking black, so that he's just not just purely gaining time with these moves as he's attacking the queen, because when he attacks the queen with this knight, the queen attacks the knight right back. So it's not like black is able to gain any time, right? So it's been kind of a stalemate. So after these exchanges, Alekhine plays bishop e2. Another interesting continuation here is just the natural c4, right? Kicking the knight away from that outpost. So let's say knight to b6, then bishop e2. Play can continue. C takes d4, queen takes d4, and queen f6. Why do I show you this variation? Because after queen takes f6, knight takes f6, castles, white is better here. And this is the position or type of position I was talking about, that when I say when the game clarifies and starts to open up, you can see that the bishop pair will be felt. Notice black doesn't have any outposts for the knight. So this position being relatively open is not conducive to the knights. They have no good squares to land further up the board in enemy territory, right? So they're confined on their own side of the board. Meanwhile, white has open diagonals to use his long range bishops effectively against the position of black. Okay. With that said, after c4, knight b6, bishop e2, c takes d4, queen takes d4. Instead of queen f6, which I shown to be bad for black, he could try e5, right, keeping the pieces on the board, and possibly maybe a little better, but I still think it's much better for white. So for instance, after queen c3 there, let's go knight a4 and queen c2 attacking the knight, and bring the other knight in, castle, queen h4. So this is basically what black has to hope for now, some type of attack on the king side. Bishop e3, bishop e6, and rook fd1, preventing queen side castling here. And again, white is much better. The bishop pair looks great. His king side is protected, but okay, he has chances with the heavy pieces on, because he's gonna have to probably win by a checkmate. All right, so that's probably a little bit better to play e5 here than to just play queen f6 and allow the trade of queens. So needless to say, Alekhine did not go into the c4 continuation, which would have been quite strong, but instead he just kept developing. Play bishop e2, queen f6, So now he's on this diagonal here, and now Alekhine fortifies the position, plays c3, and now c takes d4, c takes d4, and now knight 7b6. And again, notice the problem with this bishop. This is always issue in the French. You have to be able to figure out what you're going to do with this guy right here. And black has not been able to solve that yet. Meanwhile, the position has been open, and black has helped by playing c takes d4 at this stage. And but he hasn't been able to do anything with the open position. So black is slowly losing his lead in development as white gets his pieces out into the game. So bishop h5 is played, rook g7, and now bishop f3. Why bishop f3? Well, he's threatening knight h5. That's the idea. So here's the maneuver: bishop h5, rook goes back, bishop back, and you can see the position of these two pieces, and white wants to do that. Therefore, bishop f3, queen g6. So it stops this idea, of course, of forking the queen and king, and he offers an endgame here, which, if if white takes it, this is gonna, be a little premature. But listen, black's not gonna win this, but white is better here. But again, it's like, eh. So Alekhine makes the right decision, and he decides to keep the pieces on the board. And again, that's that's why Alekhine reminds me of Kasparov so much, or Kasparov reminds me of Alekhine, because that's definitely a dynamic player there to keep the heavy pieces on the board. Player like Karpov or Capablanca might say, you know what, I'm going to win this end game in 80 or 90 moves. Play it safe, two bishops. We're gonna win this in on move 93. So Alekhine says, you know what? Take that. Plays bishop e4, and he provokes black into playing the weakening move here. So f5, bishop f3, staying of course on this diagonal, keeping this pawn safe right here. If f4 now, fantastic move is just simply bishop h5. Okay, so bishop f5, bishop h5 is the threat. You see, king, queen lined up. Therefore, king f8. Alekhine continues on. a4 reminds me of Fischer, right? Playing this move a4 with the idea of bishop a3. But not only does it have the idea of bishop a3, but also the idea of a5. For example, if white can move again, you play a5 and knight d7, and now knight h5, harassing the rook. Let's say rook g8 to try to stay on the g file. Knight f4 gets rid of that good knight that was there, develops his own piece. And let's say knight f6, and now rook c1, getting ready to come into c7 with the rook g7, and now simply bishop e5. And again, you see the bishop power on display as the position becomes open. And notice this guy has not been able to do anything. And since he's blocked in, since he can't come out, neither can this guy. So white is practically winning at this point. That's the idea behind this move a4, or ideas rather. Like I said, one is a5, the other idea is bishop a3. So, before all of that can happen, Euwe says, you know what, I'm going to the c file first. Plays rook c7, no problem. Castle. Of course, Alekhine could have, he could have played a5 here, but it castles, right? There's more than one good move in the position. So castles, bishop d7. Euwe said, hey, I got to deal with this bishop sometime. Now, Alekhine has a choice, a5 or bishop a3. He decides to go with bishop a3 here. Okay. Again, a5 was possible. Now let me just show you, if rook c3, right, natural looking move, then queen b1. Remember, this guy is attacked, and there's some problems here in the position, as you can might spot. The b4 square is very sensitive, as the king is here on f8 and the rook is here on c3. So after queen b1, the knight must move, right, because it's attacked by the a5 pawn. And now bishop takes d5. That removes the protection of the rook. E takes, and you can see fork, double attack here. Queen b4 attacks the king with check and the rook. Just an example of what can go on. So instead of rook c3, knight c4 is more natural. But then again, black still has problems here. Knight takes f5. Idea being, if queen takes f5, then just queen takes f5, check. And you can see now the knight is hanging, bishop d5. So problems, problems, problems. So a5 wasn't chosen, although a very strong move in the position. Bishop a3 was chosen, also a good move. King scoots over. Now a5. And here Alekhine goes for it. I'm sorry, Euwe goes for it. He plays rook c3. Queen b1, and we have line analogous, except we don't have, since a3, bishop a3 is played already and the king is moved, we don't have this at the end of the combination. So knight a4, bishop takes d5, e takes d5, and now Alekhine just wins the pawn here in b7. And you can see now that the black position is really uncoordinated and shambles. Like, the pieces are terrible. The queen c6, Alekhine could have played several moves like rook fb1 or just queen takes c6. He just simply plays a6. And now knight b6, bishop c5. Very strong move by Alekhine here. Okay, so after bishop c5, I wouldn't be doing you justice if I didn't give you a chance to ask yourself, what's the idea behind bishop c5? It's always important to understand these ideas, and this channel, I'm trying to break it down to you, so the videos might be a little longer. But pause the video and try to figure out, like, what's the idea here behind bishop c5? What exactly is white trying to accomplish here in this position? All right. The next move Euwe did is he played he played f4, and there's a reason behind that. Okay. So, all right. So, like I said, if you pause the video, if you didn't, it doesn't matter. Just relax. So, the reason behind bishop c5 is that first, Alekhine is actually threatening to play knight f5. That's his idea. What he does with bishop c5 is he cuts off the coordination between the queen and rook, right? Because when the bishop is here on a3, the rook is supporting the queen along with the bishop on d7. When he plays bishop c5, the rook is now cut off. All right. So again, as we like to do, if we can give white another move in a row, he would play knight takes f5. The reason is because the bishop cannot capture the knight, because then the queen would just be hanging. Therefore, black would have to play queen takes b7. However, and it looks all right. However, simple two moves work. One is just a takes b7, rook b8, or depending on your choice, your preference and move order, you could just play knight e7 check first. Notice the bishop is there protecting. King f7, a takes b7, rook b8, and rook takes a7. All right. Now, if black tries to get fancy and play rook takes c5, then just simply d takes c5, and he still has no time to really get anything, because this pawn is attacking there. So for instance, king takes e7. Right, you could just throw this in, right? Rook e1, check. King d8. C takes b6. Look at that, so sad. Now the king can't get over. All right, bishop c6. And it's too late. Okay, what are you gonna do? And game over. So it's very important to understand the ideas, like the threats, because it's easy to look at this move bishop c5 and say, oh yeah, Alekhine just wants to, free up his pass pawn, or something real like basic like that. But no, these moves have a lot of depth to them, and that's why I question that whole idea about alcoholism with Alekhine. I mean, yeah, he was a big drinker, but um, he was playing very very strongly, but so was Euwe. So Euwe played f4, just attacking the knight here. Again, he's trying to avoid that continuation. Guess what Alekhine played? Knight f5 anyway, because he can't do anything about it. And he's threatening the fork here. This explains the next move from Alekhine. King h8. He plays knight e7 anyway. So the queen has to do something. He knows he's dead by playing queen takes b7. So he plays queen e6. And now bishop takes b6. And this takes away the protection of the rook. Okay, that was the other idea with the bishop on c5. That was like the tertiary idea. The first idea, like I said, was to let's go back. The first idea was to threaten, to take this pawn, right, at some point, and come in and play knight e7, etc. As explained, right. But the other idea is to remove this bishop, take away the protection. See, because once the queen moves, then the queen is no longer protecting the rook. So it's like a stack of cards or dominoes. Like once one thing fell, everything started to fall apart. The knight f5, king h8, knight e7. Now the queen has to move. Now the rook is not adequately defended. After bishop takes b6. So now what? Only move Euwe has really is play bishop c6, attacking the queen and subsequently protecting the rook there. Of course, knight c6. So knight c6 is played, and then just desperation at this point by Euwe. He plays rook g8. If he tries to play a move like queen takes c6, right, then just simply bishop c7. Of course, black is just down a piece. So instead, he plays rook g8 and decides to be down 2 pieces because he figures, what, maybe he can generate some chances, playing a move like queen h3, in desperation. So Alekhine is just gonna finish the game off in a classical manner. So again, I will ask, after showing you what the threat is, that from black, what do you think, or white's, what do you think what do you think white's next move was? So again, if given the opportunity, black will play this move right here. All right, so if you give again, like I do with white sometimes, if you just give black a magical move, he's gonna play queen h3, and there's no stopping it in this position, because if g3, then simply f3, and that's gonna be mate. Of course, white could prolong and play queen takes h7, like ridiculous moves like that. So the game will be over. So Euwe's threatening to basically win in one move, right? So he's been getting, pushed around the whole game. He's down 2 pieces, and he goes for it. He plays one last trick. So if you're Alekhine here, what do you do? So again, going back here, c6, and I explained to you why, Euwe didn't just go for the obvious losing continuation, queen takes c6. Instead, he plays rook g8, and his idea, if he can move again, he will be winning. If it was black to move here, he would win with queen h3. So you're white, and you have to find the refutation here. Okay? So, let me give you the wrong answer. So knight takes a7, right? Takes the pawn, and it protects, because some of you are like, hey, I can now some of you are saying, hey, now if queen a3, I could just play queen to d5 and be winning. Right? You got the pass pawn, you got two pieces, the thread is stopped, right? I say like after a move like g4, you got the powerful queen takes g8, king takes, g takes, white wins, right? So that is a possibility, right? But too bad it's the wrong possibility. Usually long lines are riddled with errors, right? But I give you credit and respect for coming up with a decent idea. If you found knight takes a7, but it's tactically flawed. The reason why is because black still is gonna win after that. Because after knight takes a7, a powerful move, queen e4. So it blocks this idea of queen being able to take on d5, of course, without losing the queen. Then f3 is met by a powerful move. Rook takes f3 here. Okay. Rook takes f3. Queen takes f3. Now what? Rook a2. Now the g2 pawn is protected, but now you start having back rank problems. Queen e3. Check. Can't go h2. You got to go here. f1. And the attack just will not stop. f3. And let's see, queen d5, f takes g2, and what are you gonna do? If you play rook g2 like you want, then you get mated. All right, you lose a lot of material, but you're gonna get mated in 3 moves here. Therefore, queen takes g2 is forced, and now you have this queen versus 3 pieces. The problem is that everything's so uncoordinated. The queen will be able to just maneuver itself, and just start picking up everything. All right, so that's winning. That's actually winning for Euwe. So this is a real idea here. Okay, so going back to the game, Euwe has played 33 rook g8 with these powerful threats in mind. This is the main idea. Well, like I said, if you play knight c6, I'm sorry, knight takes a7, with this idea of playing, after queen h3, playing queen d5, that's met by the powerful move queen e4. So, what did Alekhine do? Alekhine simply played knight e5. Right? Notice how it just conveniently blocks the queen d4 idea. And now if queen h3, then just simply knight f7. Check. King g7. Now the rook is blocked, and now g takes f3. So that refutes the whole idea at one move. Knight e5, rook g7 instead. So he said, hey, I'll attack the queen. And Alekhine here, he makes some weaker moves here. He plays queen b8 check. I mean, he could have just played like bishop c5 or something. He could even play bishop takes a7, because there's no way to stop the pawn. That's the problem. A takes b7, rook b3, rook fb1. Right, he takes the pawn. So I'm sorry, he can't stop the pawn, but you still lose. Right, because of all of the material. You got two rooks and two minor pieces versus the queen. Right, and your king is stuck on the back rank, so you're just gonna get mated. All right. Same here with bishop c5 is possible also. Same thing. Rook takes b7, a takes rook b3, and same idea. The king is gonna get mated back here. So after rook g7, he just played queen b8, rook c8, and again he could have played bishop takes a7, queen takes a7. Analogous variations. For some reason he went in for this knight g6, rook takes, and then he just played queen takes f4. I mean, he's up a piece, so I guess he's not. Maybe he was drinking here. You never know. He might have been had a few cocktails by the chessboard, and he just saw some win. You know, and so now Euwe plays queen. Queen takes b6. Yeah, queen e5 check, and now rook g7. If he plays the king here, then just simply rook fb1. Good move. And let's, queen d6. And what it is here is things start getting traded off, but you can see the pawn discrepancy here. White is just up 2 pawns. So going back, queen e5. Instead, rook g7 was played. Queen d5, winning the pawn. Another pawn, rook d8. Queen e5, queen d4, queen d4, and then Euwe resigned here. You know, he's just down a bunch of pawns. So Alekhine didn't win in the most efficient and elegant way, but he won a tough game. And I don't know what the time situation is, because it seems like he picked like the simplest way that he could see to win. And so he might have been, in a bad time situation where he just needed to find a way of winning where he was guaranteed to win. So instead of finding the most accurate and precise moves. So that is the end of game 3. So now Alekhine takes the lead. He's up 2 games to 1. I hope you enjoyed that video. I'd love to hear your comments below. Please subscribe and like and do all those things to help my videos get more visibility on YouTube. A lot of people comment on my videos sometimes. They say, man, it's some good stuff. Like, I wish you had more views. I wish people saw you more and stuff. Well, I need the people to support me. Hit the thumbs up. If you just look at the video and don't hit the thumbs up, then Google doesn't know that they have a good channel on their hands. So please hit the thumbs up, subscribe. Check the links below. I always put DVDs related to the opening, so you'll see some good DVDs on the French, even some books for those of you who still read books. There's also a donation link to support my channel, and we'll be looking, at the next decisive game. This was a good match, and I hope most of all that you're learning from the content. The videos are a little long. Because I'm going into the variations and some of the backstory behind the games, etc., etc. But I hope that it helps you to improve. So with that said, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys on the next video.